Good evening. Welcome to the 2025 Nobel Winter Concert, night one. Now you can see how crowded it is on one night. We used to do this all on one night. This is actually all the families for just the string groups. All the band groups are going on tomorrow evening. If you can believe it, we used to pack about twice as many people in here. Which is why we decided to finally split it up into two nights. You're welcome in advance. So, for those of you, thank you. So for those of you that have not met me before, my name is James Macaria. I am the instrumental music director here at Nobel Middle School, and I'm now in my third year here, and I'm happy to say that each and every year this program has grown. When I first took over, we had about 170 students in the program. Now we have over 230. Things are definitely going in the right direction. And as you can see, with a group this size, it looks like there's no end in sight for yours truly. So I'm very happy to present to you our first group. This is our 6th grade beginning strings. And just by show of hands out of this group, how many of you are performing on the instrument you're holding in your hand for the first time ever? So we did have several students join us that already had some experience. We were very fortunate to get some experience in elementary school. But the one thing that the experienced players as well as the newcomers got to really learn how to do in this type of setting with such a large group is really learn how to play together and refine some of those foundational techniques that will allow them to grow into better and better string players and musicians over years to come. So you'll see them demonstrating a lot of those different things here tonight. You'll see that they don't need me to stand up here and go, 1, 2, ready, go. They do it all silently. They're all like super well trained, okay? Like you guys are doing some good work out there. So the first couple of tunes you guys are gonna hear, some holiday classics, and what you're watching for is for them to move together, play together, rest together, start, and end together, okay? The first one up is Jingle Bells. Thank you. So while they get set for their next tune, you may be noticing nobody is using a bow right now. And anybody that's observed any string player ever knows that 90% of what you play is done with the bow. Except when you start, the really first technique you learn on any string instrument is something that we call pizzicato. And yes, you have to do this because it is Italian. Okay, so pizzicato, this technique of plucking the string. So it teaches them their open strings, the names and pitches, and it also teaches them to start to really focus on the left hand to make sure that whenever they put a finger down, they're not just landing on some random spot on the fingerboard. Anybody here play electric guitar, acoustic guitar, bass, anything like that? Anything with a fret? Frets? Frets are super, I hate to say it, they're a little bit easier because as long as your finger lands in the right spot, as long as that fret is not buzzing, the right note is going to come out. Here, everything is fretless. So if your finger is right in the wrong spot, it's either way low in pitch or way high in pitch. So this pizzicato and allowing them to work with just worrying about plucking and really anchoring the left hand to the correct notes is really great for their foundation. This next one up is Dreidel Dreidel. Thank you. We've got one more pizzicato piece for you before we move on to some bow stuff. This is one of the first ones that they learn, actually. And while you guys can't tell because you don't have the sheet music in front of you and maybe you don't know how to read music the way that these kids have been learning how to, but one of the things I tell them is whenever you start learning an instrument and learning music, it really is a lot like learning a new language. There's a new written manuscript, there's a new form of decoding symbols and reading. And so one of the things that's actually hidden in this piece that you guys don't see is something kind of secret called a repeat sign. So this only looks like about a 4-measure piece of music, but for them, it's twice as long just because they've got that extra little thing that they have in there. This is Good King Wenceslas. Alright, that's enough with the plucking stuff, alright? You guys ready to see some bow? Okay. So, these kids know because they've lived the experience, okay? When you guys started playing pizzicato, you probably thought, oh, it's easy. I got this string thing, I got this thing, beat. No problems. And as soon as we pick up the bow, how many of you guys noticed, oh, this is gonna be a lot harder than I thought? Yeah. The bow is when you go from a nice plucking sound to a bag full of cats getting run over by a lawnmower, okay? It's really bad sometimes. So, I'm happy to say though, that everyone in this room has worked super hard, and everybody in here is now a licensed bow carrier. It's true, they've all earned their bowing license. Yeah, give them a hand, why not? So, they worked really hard. They had to really demonstrate that they had full knowledge of how to use it properly without making that awful, nails on a chalkboard sound. And so it gives me great pleasure and pride to now say, beginning strings, you may pick up your bows. Here's Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
No, I left my water down there. Thank you so much. Not a single nail on a chalkboard there. All right,
So we've got one more for you guys. Now, among the other few skills that they learn in their first year is they master a couple of scales. And the first scale that you learn when you play an orchestral string instrument is called the D major scale. There's a very famous melody that uses this scale, and it's called the can-can. Okay, so by the way, if anybody feels like getting up and doing some flying kicks or things like that in the aisles, feel free if you feel so moved. But that big moment, right? The bum 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 bum. That spot right there, where they leap way up and then fall all the way back down again, that's a D major scale. And they've learned how to do it with incredible ease. So here it is, your finale from your beginning strings this evening, the can-can. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on with our next group. This is our wonderful 7th grade orchestra. Everyone in this group, with maybe the exception of one or two, was in our beginning strings program last year. So, like 365 days ago, they were up here plucking dreidel dreidel and, you know, Good King Wenceslas and playing Ode to Joy and doing all that stuff. And you'll see now in year 2 just how far they go in terms of the type of techniques that they employ, the depth of music that they get into. It really is a whole new ballgame once you hit year 2. And I'm not gonna lie, I've challenged this group. I've pushed them really, really hard. And even though there were times where I thought, you know, maybe they would try to lock me out of the room or something like that so I didn't have to go to class that day or something. They have really risen to the occasion and really tackled some very challenging literature. So this first one, just to get ourselves started, this is Exhilaration. What a difference a year makes, right? Very impressive, very impressive. This next one I think is probably their favorite of the set. Every time we call this in rehearsal, they're like, yes! This one has a totally different flavor, totally different vibe. It paints a very different scene, and it introduces some new notes, some altered notes that create a really kind of interesting sonic landscape. This is called Sahara Crossing. Thank you so much. That was Sahara Crossing. All right, this next tune, we got some history with this tune, don't we, orchestra? Yeah, this was the one they wanted to lock me out of the room for. And I kind of knew when I chose it that it was going to push them. But of course, I chose it anyway. I mean, so there are so many different things that they're asked to do here. And I'm just going to tell you what they are, and they may not mean much to you because you may or may not have experience doing this. But the combination of what they've got to do with left hand, capturing notes, the things they've got to do with right hand, moving in the same direction, crossing strings and back again. Style changes from very smooth to short, bouncy, and very lighthearted and spirited. There's just so much going on in this one. But I'm really proud of the way that they've persevered through this one. I know it wasn't always fun for them, but I'm very happy that we're able to present it to you tonight. This one is Luminescence. So we've got one more here for you this evening. Here's our holiday tune for the night. When I was their age, I fancied myself a little bit of a closet metalhead. So anytime I find an opportunity to introduce a little bit of rock and roll inspired stuff to orchestra or band, I usually jump at the chance. So I came across this one. I'll grant it's not the best title ever created, but it's an orchestra rock version of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. This is Rest Ye Merry, Rock Ye Very. Thank you. All right. One more quick stage change. Again, remember, please, donations are available. Are there any seats? No? Oh, I'm really glad we did 2 nights. Okay. So next up will be our chamber strings group while orchestra goes ahead and heads back to the music room. After this quick break, we'll be right back. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue. Thank you so much. This next group is what we call our chamber string orchestra. So this is a combination of our 8th grade string players, well, I should say the string players from our Philharmonic Orchestra, which you guys will hear next, and some 7th graders from the previous group that won their way into this group by audition only. Hello. So this group, believe it or not, they only rehearse all together once a week. And the rest of the stuff they do sort of on their own time. It's all individual practice, and we just sort of put it together later, which is a lot more along the lines of what a professional musician might do. They do a lot of solo practice time, prep time, and by the time they get together with a group, they just glue it together real quickly because they're all tuned in and listening. So we've got a couple of pieces for you. These first two are from a work called The Sweet Petite Winter Suite. And it basically is imagining the personification of different sweet treats over the holidays. This first one is candy canes, very light, bubbly, spirited, maybe slightly mischievous, and then hot chocolate, warm, cozy, yeah, like you would snuggle up next to a nice warm crackling fire. So we hope you enjoy these two from the Sweet Petite Winter Suite, candy canes and hot chocolate. Sorry, is our performance interrupting some conversations? Thank you. All right, we've got one more for you. Now, my very first year here, the Chamber Strings Group performed this piece. I had never heard this arrangement before, but it was something that I was so impressed with. I was like, you know what? We've got to bring this back for another holiday concert. I've already told you guys I'm a fan of rock and roll, rock arrangements of things. This is Carol of the Bells. All right, Philharmonic stay. Everyone else, you're free. Thank you. That's our chamber strings. We've got one more group this evening, the one you've been waiting for, Nobel Philharmonic. Please take the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you for the first time ever the Nobel Philharmonic. This is a group of primarily 8th graders, although we do have some outstanding 7th graders in this group as well. These are my kids. I've had many of these kids since they were 6th graders. I'm gonna try not to let my voice crack right now. But, you know, a couple of years ago to see what they've been able to achieve and accomplish from, you know, plucking jingle bells and playing donkey round to all of a sudden coming out with a roaring piece of music like that. I can't say enough good things about these kids. So we have a wonderful set here for you this evening. This next one, Dark Adventure, is designed to sort of take the listener on a little bit of a journey, starting sort of ominous and mysterious, and all of a sudden we kick into a very up-tempo, sort of dark and mythical sounding melody. We hit a very calm patch in between, just when we think our hero is safe, and then a big conclusion at the end. We hope you enjoy it. Dark Adventure. Thank you. Ah, boy, so much thinking. I'm thinking about right now. So many people to thank. Just like so much that goes into creating something like this. I want to let you guys all know for the first time ever, in addition to having a new group up here, you see we've got some new camera equipment around. We are actually live streaming this performance for the first time ever, which is very cool. So if you have relatives, things like that, that maybe didn't get it for tonight, you can always have them, maybe send them a link for night two. But I do, that does bring up that there are some people I do have to thank before I forget. I'm very, very lucky and honored to work with a couple of really wonderful teacher assistants. These are music education majors over at Cal State Northridge. Where is Ms. Amy Madrigal and Mr. Carter Miller? These two, I mean, I started feeling sick about 2 days ago. I was like 1 foot in the grave yesterday. I don't know if this is just stage energy or what, but I feel great. And in large part due to their contribution and their help. So please, one more hand for them. All right, let's take a little more music, shall we? This next composer seems to always sneak his way into our programs, and it's never anything that I choose initially. I comb through music over the summertime, over the wintertime. Oh, that would be good for first period. Oh, that would be great for fifth period. And this guy's never on my list, but somehow or another, Tchaikovsky always makes it. So this one is Swan Lake. It's a super famous melody. Even if you don't know it by title, you probably know it by what it sounds like. And I think it's pretty safe to say they've really grown accustomed to playing some Tchaikovsky as well. We hope you enjoy it. Swan Lake. Thank you so much. We're going to leave you with one more here tonight. Here's our little holiday flair for the evening. Normally, a fanfare piece is something that you play at the beginning for the arrival of some dignitary or special person or even royalty in some cases. But we're playing this one at the end, and I think instead we're going to use it as a way to welcome in the holiday season and also to welcome in a lot of new faces. I know with groups as large as like what we had at the very beginning of the night with the beginning strings, there are a lot of people who are in our audience for the first time. If you're a first-time Nobel concert goer, please raise your hand. Welcome. Thank you guys for being here. We hope you guys have enjoyed it. I love it. I didn't even tell them to do that. That's what happens when they're the good group. All right, I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying. That's my cue to just say, here's our last piece. And thank you for being with us tonight. This is a festive fanfare.